Recapping what was an intriguing week of fantasy football, NFL Week 11. Let's start with quarterback. You've got Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, Bo Nix, Taysom Hill, and then Anthony Richardson rounding out the top five this week. A nice group of players. You love to see Sunday Night Football stars, obviously not quite making the cut in this group of five, is a Justin Herbert, who played very well. But Joe Burrow, once again, man, right near the top at the quarterback position. You just got to feel for him on a personal level, doing everything you can and then some in your power, and you still fall short. It just highlights the team game that is the NFL. It simply just does. Bo Nix, QB3 on the week, another near 30-point week. Bo Nix, man, he is proving why you need to take first-round pick shots in your late first on guys who maybe aren't so widely thought of as these generational quarterbacks, as highly as a Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. But guys who get the NFL investment, guys who are bound to get the opportunity, that's all we're chasing in fantasy football, right? We're chasing opportunity, we're chasing relevancy, we're chasing trajectory. Bo Nix proving why you need to highly consider first-round quarterbacks that aren't the sexiest, that don't go in the top 10 per se, in the last 5-6 picks of your first round of your rookie draft, especially when you're a playoff team. What's that RB, what's that wide receiver potentially even going to do for you? Just a really interesting conversation to think of, and I think it's something that we're not quite going to see, at least right now. It's not so clear what this upcoming 25 class is going to look like beyond the top group of guys. Your Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, Jalen Milroe, I think, is really making a push as bona fide guys that are going to be in that top 10, 13, the Bo Nix range or better. Get that type of draft capital. So there's already going to be a little bit more of a scarcity there. Half the guys effectively that went at that rate comparatively to what we just saw with the 6 going all that high. Looks like there's going to be 3. I think there's going to be 3, and then you could have another 1 or 2, I think, sneak into the first round. And it's going to be really hard to pass up. We'll see what happens with the receivers in the first round. We'll see what happens with the running backs. If it's only Ash and Genty, again, you could be in a situation where it's quarterback. Why not take the swing? Why not? Speaking of why you bet on upside at quarterback, Anthony Richardson back in style. Back in style, like he never left, like he never checked himself out of a play or two. In Indy, a little bit redundant there. Anthony Richardson, great performance. Shane Steichen, full of praise in his postgame. Talking about the toughness, just the makeup. That's what you love to see. In Dynasty, when we're talking about not just 1 year, not immediate outlooks, more of a mid, more of a long term, you got to love what a makeup, what the moxie, the character of the quarterback, what that means for any player for that matter. If there is that it factor, so to speak, right, that can keep you on track, in line to be a difference maker in the NFL and then to be a difference maker in your fantasy lineup, that plays a big part. It just does. How will we ever quantify it? How can you differentiate draft to draft? That's the $1 million question NFL evaluators are going to ask forever. The tale as old as time, right? You're gonna hit, you're gonna miss. But Anthony Richardson, love to see it. You love to see it. And overall, the strong top 10 positionally, top to bottom. Of course, you've got Goff going near 35. I mean, just an annihilation of the Jags. Not sure how Doug Peterson's still there, to be honest. I mean, his days have to be numbered. But just looking at the top 10. You start with Goff's 34. Obviously, you can see where Richardson at 5. You know, still clear the 28-point threshold, so really strong week there. And then with Sam Darnold at 10, 23.6. And then even if you want to say, look, Taysom Hill, it's a weird conundrum. Technically, he threw 2 passes, so if you want to cut him out of that, right, for all intents and purposes, he was a running back, not a QB, not a tight end this past week. So you take him out, still, you got Tua in that top 10 threshold, quarterback ones. all going above 23 as a floor. So that's great to see. Arturo, what's up, man? Trade JJ for Lamar and JSN. I would 100% do that in Dynasty. 1,000%. 1,000%. Assuming, obviously, this is super flex. Absolutely. I would take Lamar over Justin Jefferson straight up. Maybe that's crazy, but Lamar Jackson, I mean, come on. We see what he did to start the season. We see what he has done previously. MVP type seasons. Incredible rushing upside in that tier 1 of rushing fantasy upside. Lamar, I think this is a great time for you to execute a trade where you're looking for a buy low opportunity as much as you reasonably can hope for in a quarterback of Lamar Jackson's caliber in Dynasty Superflex formats. So I take him basically straight up. I can understand preference either way, but for me, I'm just going to inherently go for that QB in Dynasty Superflex. So I want Lamar. And then you get JSN. Talk about the idea of a quote-unquote throw-in. I mean, come on, that's a premium player in his own right who has been emerging, who's been putting together some strong performances, man. Looking like what we had hoped. JJ don't like because you don't got any ceiling. It sounds insane to say that, right? Talking about ceiling with Justin Jefferson. But is it really? I think it's a fair question to ask. It's to think about. I mean, what has been the ceiling historically? I mean, Justin Jefferson, he has been, of course, over the body of his career, he's been a record setter at his position. Don't get me wrong. But there hasn't been a world-beating type individual season. He hasn't stacked together number 1 overall receiver numbers any given seasons. Don't get me wrong. He is as safe as a bet as you can get for, let's draw the line, a wide receiver 1, firm top 10, firm, very likely to be top 5 any given season, right? In terms of your fantasy performance. And look, this is not me dragging Justin Jefferson here. It's a fantasy conversation. That's the game we're playing, right? And you look at, is Sam Darnold, I'll put my hand up. I didn't even fully realize at a certain time what Sam Darnold's exact contract extension was, or not extension, what his situation was. I thought he was going to be there next year. I thought he would at least find a way to be effectively a bridge for a little bit longer until J.J. McCarthy takes over. But I think Sam Darnold's going to get his bag, maybe a Baker Light, Geno Light, or in between a Baker Geno type contract to be a guy elsewhere. So then it's J.J. McCarthy. What's the J.J. to J.J. connection, I think it's fair. You got to assume a little bit of growing pains. And it's not like he's the only notable weapon in Minnesota. I mean, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, Justin Jefferson, he of course has as good a spike week potential as anybody, right? Given the raw talent. But in fantasy and dynasty, it's just, I want to chase the quarterback upside, man. And the quarterback upside in a dynasty super flex format, it's got to be Lamar for me. And then JSN makes it a no-brainer for you. Really does. Going into the not so positive quarterback performances, quarterback narrative storylines I'm looking at after week 11. Bump Mahomes, it's just the fantasy, it's not going to be a good fantasy season, clearly. So talk about, look, Arturo in the chat talking about a trade where he acquires Lamar. After Lamar obviously didn't have a great week, obviously AFC North defensive battles are going to happen now this time of year. So you see the story against a really good Steelers team, Steelers defense. A little bit of struggle there. Mahomes, it's been largely success until obviously the Bills that we just saw. Going into Buffalo, losing to Josh Allen. It's great to see Josh Allen, for his team, his narrative, come up with a big win. We'll see when it counts, right, in the playoffs. But Mahomes, it's just going to be for the foreseeable future. The rest of let me clarify. Say the rest of this regular season, it's going to be a relative buy low opportunity. I really do believe that. Excuse me. You're going to have Rashee Rice. Rumors that he maybe if they go all the way, maybe he's there in a Super Bowl. I don't know the exact look. I'm not a doctor. But what I do know is that Rashee Rice is going to play football again in a Chiefs uniform. They're going to continue to draft They're gonna make this offense as good as they can feasibly do. They're going to continue to do right by Patrick Mahomes. I don't see how they're just going to turn the other cheek toward a guy like Pat Mahomes. So, interested in buying him low. Let's talk about the Jets. What's their future at quarterback? I mean, hand up again. I really thought, this would be a year for the Jets. I mean, relatively to what had been Aaron Rodgers, healthy, quote unquote, right? You thought, but I mean, just a statue back there. Jets have just been stuck in the mud, an absolute, seemingly typical Jets, like as weak as it sounds. Oh, the Jets are going to be the Jets are going to jet. Just a frustrating year beyond belief. Of course, now you just fire GM Joe Douglas, really paving the way out. We, of course, know of the Robert Saleh leaving. I mean, at this point, feels like ages ago without the Jets, how the Jets' traction, steam, dumpster fire just continues to multiply exponentially week by week almost. The Jets, they're clearly cleaning house. They're cutting ties to a degree from Aaron Rodgers, how he came into things. It's a very interesting conversation to have. I was way off in assuming Aaron Rodgers. Look, no one can foresee an Achilles injury. That's really going to be one of the biggest what ifs, I think, arguably ever. So does Aaron Rodgers start beyond the season? I think he does with the Jets. I think he does. No, I don't think he retires, but I can very well see. I mean, what I think is the most likely path with a new coaching staff, with the new group of leadership altogether. There, I foresee you take a shot on quarterback, you take a swing. That's what's going to be attractive to prospective GM coaching candidates. And I don't think, and speaking of ties with Aaron Rodgers, look, player-wise, of course, you've got Devontae Adams. And he, I think, is there as well beyond this season. But coaching, I don't see how Hackett stays, right? He already basically got replaced. So I think an overhaul is inbound and potential Jalen Murrow. Throwing out hypotheticals. I don't know. All I do know is that it's been massively disappointing. I could see a quarterback being drafted by them by a new regime. Aaron Rodgers comes back. He's effectively there. Have we seen it before in Green Bay with the Jordan Love and sitting for multiple years? I think it will be only a matter of multiple weeks at this rate. Next year, in 2025, Aaron Rodgers comes back. He's starting for a few games, and if he's not lighting it up, I mean, I think it is a short fuse. That seems like the only New York way, right? It's just going to come, it'll just be dramatic. And with Aaron Rodgers, of course, is there any other way than for it to be a national national notoriety? I just don't see it any other way, right? I mean, you guys let me know in the comments. Talk about some younger guys, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud. Not great performances, although with Stroud in particular, it's interesting talking about what buoys Jaden Daniels. Look, right at the end in the dying garbage time moments, he gets that last second touchdown, so it even inflates his numbers a little bit. But then CJ Stroud, first play of the game, for effective or one of, right? Touchdown that gets called back. Tough look there. With both of those guys, though. Again, Dynasty, Superflex, that's the lens that we're going to continue to view things format-wise. I am all for looking into buying low on both of these guys. All for it. Really like their long-term outlook. Jaden Daniels, of course, he's dealing with some injury. It just doesn't look truly right. Not a doctor, again. But I think you can tell, you can sense. I mean, every player. The NFL is a brutal sport. It's a brutal game. So everybody's managing through, maneuvering somehow, some way, doing their best. This is a time when Jaden Daniels, I think, losing a little bit of steam, maybe enthusiasm, maybe as the QB1, number one overall player, even that we saw after week 2, week 3 in this season. And just monitoring the price of both those guys. And then shifting back gears to older, and a team that already has really their next in line guy in Atlanta, Michael Penix, he comes in, end of the game, starts off pretty good with a really nice throw over the middle of the field, connecting with Ray McLeod. I am intrigued by how this Atlanta situation plays out. Shout out to Stock Exchange. They brought up, I believe it was Connor Rogers there, brought up how Kirk has been inflated to a decent degree, his numbers, and especially, look, it's going to trickle down to fantasy, by a couple performances against the Bucks. Outside of it, hasn't necessarily lit the world on fire, but nonetheless, I think it's still been good, serviceable play, what they've been looking for the most part. Atlanta, the offense has been good for the most part. Just keeping an eye on how the Falcons enter this stretch of the NFL season when it really counts, when it really matters increasingly week by week, and these money games to get you in an opportunity, in a position to make the playoffs, make some noise, to really make your season count in the ultimate success or failure. Kirk Cousins with Penix right there. Is there a chance? I mean, I'm not going to wish injury, of course. That would only be really the seemingly feasible way, barring unless there's a major collapse in Atlanta and they lose a handful of games and they're out of it. And then, okay, you give Penix a look in the back week or two of the season. But Kirk Cousins, man, it's interesting. It's interesting just monitoring, really keeping a close eye on how things, after a blowout against the Broncos, where Bo Nix, again, starring incredibly, outperforming a Kirk Cousins. Is it the altitude? Is it just the altitude? I don't think so. We'll see how the situation evolves in Atlanta. Let me know what you guys are thinking, what you guys are predicting. Because maybe we see Penix at this rate. We see how quick the NFL, especially at quarterback, decision-making can be. Maybe we see Michael Penix a little bit earlier than people expect. Maybe it's next season. Running back. Let's do running back. Mixon, Barkley, Hall, Montgomery, Jacobs, composing your top 5 at the position. Mixon and Barkley going 33.8, 35 plus. Hall going above 31, and then it's a little bit of a drop-off outside the top 3. You still got guys performing, though, at 23.4, 24.5 elite numbers in the top 5. Headlined, of course, by your TNF, your MNF, Thursday night, Monday Night Football stars, in your Barkley, in your Joe Mixons, and, of course, Breece Hall. Talk about the Tier 1 running backs in Dynasty. Good week to reaffirm some enthusiasm for him. I mean, he's really a do-it-all guy. With the Jets, man. I don't blame Woody. I know Woody Johnson owners, I mean, there's always going to be criticism, right? They're never quite going to be doing everything right. No one is, right? No one's perfect. But of course, it's easy to criticize ownership and leadership at the top. But with the talent there in New York, and of course, look, Joe Douglas drafted these guys, so he of course deserves fundamental credit. You look at the coaching, how is it? It's not that complicated, right? I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a Monday morning coach or Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, I guess at this point, but you got a guy like Breece Hall, Breece the Beast. Just let him eat. Let him eat, man. It's not that difficult. Target him and put the ball in his hands. Good things happen. And you've got Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams as well. Man, it's just the Jets, man. It's a frustrating situation for what we could hope for in a fantasy sense and what we haven't gotten to a large degree. And really, age, just a number. You've got your 26, 27, 28-year-olds for the most part, all but Breece Hall, rounding out this top 5. You go down the list a little bit at the running back position. You've got an Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, an RB1 performance this week, putting up 17 points. CMC, we'll see, low end, or really a high end RB2 performance this past week. I think just let CMC get hot, and I think it's only going to add more steam to what I view as what I've been saying is a running back renaissance era that we're entering in, that we're in the midst of in Dynasty. Age, just a number, and I think this bodes well for all the critique of, running back, this devalued position doesn't mean anything, 0 RB, right? All those buzzwords. I really like where we're at, where we're going from a running back valuation in Dynasty. I really do. You look at the criticisms of teams like the Giants, of teams like the Bengals, for those 2 guys at the top that we just saw this week, the lack of their presence, what they could do. Think about how night and day things could be, getting you over the hump. Maybe not win you all the games, right? Or most of the games that you were one score possessions, excuse me. But certainly I think those 2 teams are among the teams missing a dominant running back and what it could mean for them and their offense. Overall, just mentioned the guys at the bottom of your number ones at the position, still going well above 15, 16. You cut the line at DeAndre Swift, 16.4, and then CMC just shy of 15. Extending past your top 10, past your top 12, and then Brian Robinson at RB15 on the week, 14.2. Then you got Ken Walker, Harris, Stevenson, Kamara, Akers, running out your top 20. Good high-end week. Buoyed, of course, by the guys at the top, which I think is going to mean the most. The most meaningful is going to be the most points in terms of with any position, right? The narratives that people ascribe to it. So it's good to see these type of performances at the top, at the running back position. But we did see, speaking of names at the top, what we've seen this season even, Wyatt King, Derrick Henry, AFC North, just got to brace. Brace for a little bit of regression, some struggles. With conference play. In these tough environments, physical football, and nothing's really given. Everything's hard to come by. Tough week for Derrick Henry, but just have to really measure expectations week to week. Bijan, JT, talk about some younger guys who weren't really featured a part of this high-end week. Bijan, just the Falcons getting just shut down by a great defense. An upstart Broncos team, just really, really surprising. I think a lot of people, myself included, to a pretty good degree. Bijan, just check in, say hello. Does anybody in your leagues who wants to sell him? Because Bijan, look, great week for at least Breece. Breece is doing good by the tier 1 running backs. And then even a Jahmyr Gibbs. Still an RB1 over 19. You've got an A-chain. You got a Cook. You got young guys in there as RB1. So that's good. That's healthy. It makes it so that a Bijan can fall a bit behind the wayside 1 week or 2. JT, not a great week by his standards either. But I think game script-wise, look, the Colts had to fight it a little bit, come back, which they did. JT with AR. Some weeks, he's going to hurt. Some weeks, I think he's going to help with Jonathan Taylor's production and his upside floor-ceiling combination. Still like Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty. He's not quite in the tier 1, not quite in the tier 1, but JT, certainly a guy that I'm not looking to sell. Certainly not looking to sell JT anytime soon. Only after a spike week, only after a high week where people have a real itch to buy and invest in my JT, would I consider selling. A little bit on a more positive note, Jonathan Brooks going to make his debut. Finally. Let's see it. Let's get some steam from this 24 class. Tyrone Tracy really leading the way. Let's see Jonathan Brooks. Let's see it, man. I know everybody is scared to a incredible degree because of the Chuba contract extension. Let's just see, man. The Panthers, they're on the uptick. Bryce Young, man, playing well, leading that team. Of course, the weekly tightrope of who's starting quarterback, that's a bunch of crap. Ownership, whatever combination you want to describe it in terms of the fundamental responsibilities of who's making what decision. The Panthers, I'm intrigued. And I think Jonathan Brooks is going to have, my conviction is he'll have opportunity, man. He'll have opportunity in a split 50-50, 55-45, even 60-40 at the extreme. He's going to have opportunity to produce for you. Of course, you got to measure expectations off of the knee injury right in his initial return to action in this season, in the now. But I'm looking to maybe buy, if you can, for a couple mid-round picks. Very intrigued. A mid-round pick plus a depth guy who doesn't have that, who just doesn't have fundamental upside. So great to see Jonathan Brooks. Fingers crossed, everything goes well, no setbacks. Make his debut finally this week against, well, how about the Kansas City Chiefs coming off of a loss? So especially potentially buy low after some panic against a tough team. Something to keep in mind. Let's go. Not tight end yet. Wide receiver roundup. From week 11, we saw St. Brown, Higgins, Kupp, Chase, Jerry Jeudy make an appearance in that top 5. Starting Amon-Ra, ARSB, he spikes this week. Near 40 points. Of course, with Jared Goff and all his numbers leading the way there offensively, you know Amon-Ra is going to be a recipient to a large degree of that. And boy, he was. Amon-Ra, talk about upside, right? Conversation ceiling we've had with Justin Jefferson earlier in this show. Amon-Ra, man, you just love with how high-powered that Detroit offense is, him being the clear number one in terms of a receiving weapon. You know, Detroit Lions, they're clearest path week to week, any given week. You get Amon-Ra involved, a slot demon. I mean, good things are going to happen for your football team if you get Amon-Ra St. Brown involved. Some usual company. You've got a Cooper Kupp. You got Chase, of course. Monster season from Chase in the top 5. Unusual, well, Jerry Jeudy. Jameis is booing up some of these Cleveland assets, man. These Cleveland receivers. Jameis Winston, man, it's a fun. If he's on your team, you know, fun quarterback 2 that you need. Jameis Winston really providing some value for these Cleveland receivers. We'll see. I think they look like they might be in position to get a quarterback in this upcoming draft, but I don't know. Again, it's just like, when is leadership going to really cut ties? And are they going to make, coming from the top, you know, speaking of ownership, are they really going to make the admission of guilt of, man, I screwed up royally with this contract, and go as far as to draft a quarterback? So it's interesting. Jameis Winston, maybe he's there. Maybe he's the starter next year even. As injury, Deshaun's injury, recovery continues to be blurry, or continues to certainly be a long-term recovery. And then T. Higgins. Certainly the caliber player to be in the top 5, just haven't quite seen it. Obviously the injury this year. And I think this is a statement with T. Higgins. You see the type of player he can be, the type of talent. He can be a number 1. I believe that. He could be a number 1 in this league. I think rumors are out there that, look, I think one of the clear teams I've been talking about, the Patriots, would love to see T leave Cincy, go be a number one with a Drake May for the future, that would be incredible, man. Incredible. And then they can really address offensive line with their first round pick. Absolutely would love it. Absolutely would love it. T. Higgins back in style this week from his injury. Let's see him in style. Really incredible opportunity elsewhere as number one next season. But even right now in the here and now, let's say he finds a way to stay in Cincy. Still a great situation. Still, even though he's number two, love being connected to a Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, hey, why don't you just take some targets, draw some more attention, increase the quality of a T. Higgins target? Speaking of targets, JSN gets 11. Talked about JSN, Arturo asking the trade question. JSN involved. JSN, love to see it. Love to see it. For a prospect obviously hailed so highly, by myself included. I mean, the guy is meant to be a fantasy stud with his skill set from the slot. A little bit of a diet Amon-Ra. Not quite as, physically built, but in terms of true upside, that would be the hope. We'll see how that Seattle offense evolves. But JSN, love riding this wave, and I know with the performances that he stacked together, I think certainly there would be some interest in people acquiring him. But at the same time, it's like you're seeing the shades, you're seeing him produce. He's got the underlying talent to keep doing it. So JSN, I'm not eager to sell. He's more of a buy hold guy, if anything. And mentioned him a little bit earlier, Jerry Jeudy, yeah, epitomizing the Jameis Winston effect in Cleveland. So if you've got Jerry Jeudy, I mean, who's giving you really anything for him? I mean, why not just ride it out? Be a guy that you can throw in your flex. Could, of course, a lot of volatility inherently, but Jerry Jeudy, you like to see a receiver get some relevance, especially a former first round pick like a Jerry Jeudy. And so deep disappointing being a theme of this week for receiver. Deep in the sense of high-end performances. Of course, 26 being a floor in the top 5 is incredible. Then you even go down, Puka Nacua, awesome. Awesome to see him there. I mean, the guy's a stud. I talked about him last week. Feels like it's ditto. Puka Nacua healthy, Puka Nacua produce. They're in LA. You have a Juwan Jennings, even at wide receiver 7, still going over 25. Then you see a little bit of a drop-off. You got Jamison there at over 22.5. You got even a guy like a Nick Westbrook, Keene at wide receiver 10. Josh Downs, Tyreek Hill. Speaking of Hill, is he back? 19-plus points. Tua with a strong performance. He might just be back as well. Love to see some steam with the Miami offense. Love to see that humming. So with Tyreek, man, you're a contender. Why would you sell at this point? At this point in the stretch part of the season, So you got high end in a CeeDee Lamb, top 15, still at over 18, near 19. I mean, when we go all the way down, you go past wide receiver 2 territory. Top 25, draw the line. You're still talking 15-plus points. So deep in that sense. But also a bit disappointing. I mean, Arturo, it's just a trade right out of the sky that is perfect for this episode. Talking about a bunch of players. Of course, Justin Jefferson. He goes for 14, so not great compared to how highly we value him. TK coming back from injury, he's at 14. And then you got DJ Moore, Chicago figuring some things out. Nice to see that. Brian Thomas, then you got, of course, Adams, Zay Flowers, and AJ Brown. These are guys that are in the wide receiver 3 conversation. So just not what you're really expecting. Drake London epitomizing, look, with Atlanta. Deep, but some disappointment. D-Hop, Garrett Wilson, way down there. Deep, but disappointing. I think that's just the name of the game with the receiver position. It just is. It calls into question, fundamental valuation principles in of course, your startups, in drafts. They're startup or rookies. Very interesting conversation. Very interesting conversation. And again, playing into my stance that we are in a running back renaissance. And might as well, what can we do? But again, not talk about the Jets in every positional breakdown. Of course, you got Devontae at least going 13, somewhat, that's some production. Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, going for just about half of that, not even. I would be intrigued, honestly, given some hope. Give me some hope for a QB of the future. Jordan Travis, he's there, so we'll see. Maybe Jordan Travis gets a look at some point in the near future, but does he really? I am very interested to see what the Jets do. I think there's absolutely a possibility that they draft quarterback, and then all of a sudden, could it be Garrett Wilson again for Garrett? Could it be other Wilson, Wilson squared? Could it be Zach Wilson all over again for a Garrett Wilson? Again, just not an ideal quarterback situation, possibly, but also, with Aaron Rodgers, we gotta see an answer there for Garrett Wilson because man, he's just entering into his prime, and let's see it maximized. Let's see in a year or two when a 25, 26-year-old Garrett Wilson has a developing a potential Jalen Milroe would be awesome. Does a Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers really finish this year strong and show that, hey, maybe they're a developmental shot you can take? Just really hope that for the sake of Garrett Wilson, man. Really, really hoping for the best. Last but yes, again, we'll say least in terms of positional valuations, tight end. Brock Bowers, my God, 31. Jonnu Smith, 28. Then a massive drop-off. 19 from Njoku. So again, you're seeing that Cleveland effect. Zach Ertz, saying that in 2024. Almost 2025, we're saying Zach Ertz, tight end 4. 18.7. Noah Gray goes over 18. Really starting again with Brock Bowers. You are in an insane position if you have a relative position of difference-making production indefinitely for the next decade. Very well can say for the next decade if you have a Brock Bowers on your Dynasty team. It's just insane production. Insane fantasy value. That skill set. Talk about, complete whatever. NFL conversation of, again, similar to Justin Jefferson conversation about, who are the best players at the position in the NFL? Well, look, fantasy football, fantasy skill set, eating up targets, getting you yards after the catch, getting in the end zone. Functionally the guy in their offense, Brock Bowers. He's the answer to the tight end problems that you might have, or at least he was. I was banging the drum as, he was tight end 2 for me. He was firmly in tight end tier 1 alongside of Sam Laporta for me going back to pre-draft last year. Brock Bowers. Man, I remember I've had a conversation in one of these shows, someone asking about 3 first-round picks. Answer being, unless they're all, pick 11, pick 12, then no. But if they're meaningful, if they're early, mid-first, impossible to pass up for really any, non-quarterback, like a Josh Allen. But man, it makes you even think with Brock Bowers, you really got to think long and hard. How many picks, how many quality first-round picks does it take? Why would you trade him off your team if you have him? You're in a unique position. Just are. So strong top 6 in terms of the raw production. Top 5, we recapped, and then you go even down to Will Dissly, also above the 18-point threshold. But there's a big drop-off after that. You go 6 to 7, Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson, Schoonmaker at 12. And then, oh my gosh, might as well mention with Schoonmaker, yeah, a Ferguson injury. It's just it's a brutal landscape at tight end. It just is, unless you've got Brock Bowers. Talk about age is just a number. previous about tight end narratives. I mean, in this last game, Travis Kelce. KC tight end 1, Noah Gray. I mean, this is what we're talking about. This is what we have to deal with. I guess the saying goes, beggars can't be choosers. I mean, we get what we get, and we don't get upset, I guess, to a certain degree with tight end production. But when it's a Noah Gray in the top 5, working against the production that a Travis Kelce gives you, oh my gosh, it just keeps getting worse in terms of storylines around the tight end position in Dynasty. Just, my gosh. Leads it, rounding out on some more positive notes for this show. Week 11. Tight end class 2025 Hopium. There's 3 guys. And again, 3 guys, let me be clear. The 3 guys I'm about to name. Yeah, we started the show talking about relating Bo Nix to the idea of taking shots in your late first on first-round quarterbacks in the NFL draft that get that type of investment. I mean, I think there's certainly, looks like there might be one tight end, over under 0.5. The tight end likely gets picked in the first round, but then are we really motivated to pick one in your first round in your top 12? I'm not really moved. Unless, I mean, fool me once, though, look what we're seeing with the Dalton Kincaid. Kyle Pitts, of recent note. I'm hoping for the best with the 25 class, with specifically the 3 guys at the top. Got Warren, Loveland, Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, Harold Fannin. Those are guys who I could see being potentially notable, relevant tight ends. But then again, how relevant in the grand scheme of things in your lineup? So in the second round, I'm going to be intrigued. We'll see the capital they get, where they land exactly. So I'll be intrigued, but it's certainly no Brock Bowers. But you're telling me there's a chance maybe one ends up being a difference maker? Voice crack, excuse me. Maybe there's a chance someone ends up being a difference maker out of that group of 3 I named. I mean, Harold Fannin has an incredible skill set as a receiver. Tyler Warren's this guy that gets used out the wazoo in Penn State, man. It's incredible how heavily he's relied upon. Colson Loveland has been showing some things at Michigan ever since he really stepped foot on campus. Get some volume. So we'll see. Hopefully someone emerges out of this 25 class, but I'm not going to be so convinced, so eager to draft so early. What are you guys thinking about this tight end class? Tight end thoughts overall? Thoughts on any of the quarterback, running back, receivers? I engage with you guys. You build this channel. You're the foundation, the bedrock of the community of Dynasty. I'm sharing my perspective, my insight, but it's equal to all of yours. Let's get some discussion going and flowing. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, comment means a lot more than you can imagine. I will see you in the next one. Potential mock over the holiday schedule. Potential mock, potential rankings. We'll see coming out. Have a great one, guys. Peace.